Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Friday, August 23rd, 2024. Time to finish out the week. It's another show, and it is the first post-convention show. We're done. Sometimes a high note, sometimes a bittersweet note. I mean, it was a fantastic convention, well managed, well done. And night 4, I watched it. I mean, well, I have some reviews for it. But as it happens, Greg Dworkin has some stuff lined up as well. He watched, I think, a billion other people, watched as well. Night 4 of the convention, it's an interesting mix of things because, one, it's the night that the producers of the big show know that most people will tune in, and that people who are undecided, normies, what have you, somewhere in the mix of people who have not watched the convention minute by minute as a political junkie will tune in, and if they have no idea who Kamala Harris is, they'll tune in to get some idea of who Kamala Harris is. And so they are mindful of that when programming the speakers. And so, well, they're not always the most exciting, even though it's supposed to be the big crescendo. And also, you don't want to take thunder away. You don't want to steal the thunder away from the nominee giving their big speech. So it's an interesting mix. And as I watched, as I did with most set piece political plays, I watched while really watching social media and watching people's reaction to what was going on. And I realized that was why I don't watch most things like this. It's work to keep up with what's going on the screen and what people are saying about it and to participate in that discussion. And I can't not participate in that discussion. Anyway, Greg Dworkin has it all rounded up today, including, I'll just let him know, he sent me a usual clip. And by the way, working with the production staff yesterday on trying to hasten the editing process and smooth out the editing process when dealing with those clips. So we had some technical stuff that we rigged up in the background yesterday that will make editing go a lot smoother, and that's nice. Hopefully that means delivering the product a little sooner during the day too. It's been complicated editing shows for the last week or two for one reason or another. But Greg also sent me a clip with a full warning on it that says, you can't play this on the air, but you got to hear it. And of course, I'm intrigued. And so here's how I put it. Rather than have breakfast or a cup of coffee this morning, I listened to this clip and I said, we got to find some way to get this clip on the air. I got all the censoring noises I need. This is what these noises were made for. A rant like this one. So I think I've got an air-ready version of this rant that I can work into the show at some point, and plopped it into the soundboard, and I think it'll work just fine. This is what this stuff was made for. Just as I was getting ready to say, forget it. We don't really need to be censoring every little word here and there. Well, the noises are really for something like this, and maybe we'll have extra chances to do this during the campaign. It's thematic, to be sure. All right, so we'll get to that. We'll get to other reactions from around the country and around the world. We'll talk about the big appearance of. There was a rumor circulating during most of the day that there was a big talent, a huge international megastar. I think it was even somebody who was trafficking in the rumor said even bigger than Oprah, if you can believe it. So that's kind of a small universe of stars, and they're going to make an appearance tonight. And so speculation began. Is it going to be Beyoncé? Is it going to be Taylor Swift? Like this level of stuff is what we're thinking of. And it wasn't anybody, I don't think. In particular, there were some stars there, and that was great. The event had star power, political stars and Hollywood stars and recording artists and athletes, and all of the stuff that you would want to see was there. But yeah, nobody that fit into the category of biggest star in the world, get ready. And they kept it super secret. And well, I don't know what happened, but it didn't come to fruition. But, that wasn't like a promise made in a newspaper. It was not like it was promised before some high tribunal or anything like that. So at any rate, there was plenty of action. and plenty of excitement, and the whole traditional thing, balloon drop. I was hoping that they were going to have some of those big Trump baby inflatables that they bring around to protests, or there's inflatable couches, that you could drop as well. They should have put some of those in there with the balloons. There was confetti. Best comment I saw on the balloons and confetti was that somebody commented on Blue Sky, Tim Walz is going to stay after and help clean up all those balloons and confetti. That seemed about right. The families were on stage. Extended family made appearances on the stage. Kamala Harris's sister gave a speech. It was, it was a tremendous night. It was a great night and we now try and take that energy out to the streets. I thought it would be a great idea if they should put people from the convention. They should pay for them to do this. But you know how they'll have occasional people out on the street corners with the honk for Kamala signs, or it used to be honk for Trump, or when he did this, and you'd be out on the street corner just sort of being visible and present in the community. You should bring out the music and get out there and have stop your car, get out of your car and dance for Kamala Harris on the street corners of the cities, just to sort of, that seemed to me to be the big production theme of the whole convention was, this is not just happening in Chicago, it's happening all over the place. They ended the convention with, during the balloon drop, they had projected up on the big screen in the stadium video feeds from headquarters and house parties all over the country with their locations identified, people waving signs and cheering during all the excitement at the end. So it was a real great way to kind of integrate it and remind people that this is momentum and excitement that's supposed to be happening everywhere. So I thought, well done. Good conclusion to the convention. Greg Dworkin with a special appearance, not only Tuesday, but Friday. That's how exciting this whole thing was. Good morning, Greg.
Hey, good morning. It was exciting. And I have to point out that not only would Tim Walz be cleaning up right now, but Andy Kim would be helping him.
That's true. Both with established records that way. That's
why, one of my conservative friends was saying, okay, it worked. The patriotism was synthetic and manufactured, but damn it, it worked. And I laughed and said, the underlying assumption that patriotism from Democrats must be synthetic and manufactured is really funny. I mean, I like you. I've liked you for a long time, but it's Tim Walz patriotism. You're just not used to it.
Yeah.
What you meant was highlighted.
Yeah, that's true. The attention that was paid to it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was staged. The whole thing is an infomercial.
Well, yeah,
I get all of
show.
that. But the idea that it's synthetic and manufactured, no.
No, I mean, yeah, it's a synthetic and manufactured 24 years in the military.
Is exactly why they had to do what they did last night.
They're weird.
Not for the convention, but last night was conservative night. You had the Bulwark people complaining for 3 days. Where are the conservatives?
Were they? I wasn't listening.
Here they were tonight. And the night that everybody tunes in to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Two thoughts on that mystery guest.
The complaints switched. Yeah. Okay.
Well, first of all, my original thought, I think, was probably correct. I thought it was going to be Rick Astley, and we all got
that would have been a good one. Yeah, that would have worked.
Well, it did. It worked perfectly. Everybody tuned in to see who it was.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be Leon Panetta.
Yes, that was unusual, I thought. As far as star power goes.
It was thematic. The whole point is she's tough. She can be commander-in-chief. And you had Leon Panetta talking not to you, not to me, not to Blue Sky, but to the Adam Kinzingers in the audience who were not sure what's going on. This is where I'm asking you to play the very first clip.
Okay. I think I'm about ready.
And to set that up while you work on it.
I think I'm ready.
Good. This is
breakfast,
since you don't have the visuals, it's a podcast and you just can't see the way we can see.
Yes.
These are 8 undecideds.
They look undecided.
That CNN interviewed.
You can't tell, but they do. Yes.
And you'll find that 6 out of the 8, when he says raise your hand, you can't see that.
I can.
6 out of the 8 undecideds are voting for Kamala. One of them isn't going to vote, and one of them's a Trump guy, and I'll tell you about that after. But see if you can play that clip.
Yeah, okay. Now, I guess they get some convincing, and then they decide? Because if you're undecided voters and then you decide,
well, you're undecided voters prior to the
convention.
Then you saw the convention,
and
then you ask again.
Then you decided. Okay. All right. Well, let's see what we can roll here. Okay, it's funny. I hit play and I don't want to play.
But what I want to ask all of you all together at this point, like I said, none of you were ready to make a commitment to any candidate in November. Please raise your hand right now if you're now ready to make a commitment after today.
7 out of 8 raised their hand.
I'm just kind of surprised, Bob. We haven't rehearsed this. I'm going to make that very clear. They will attest to this. 7 of you are now ready. Scott?
Yes, I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris.
Andy?
Yeah, Kamala Harris, yes.
Donna?
Yes, I'm voting for her also.
Sean?
Sean, hello.
Yes, Kamala. Sabrina?
Oh.
Kamala.
Patrick?
Kamala.
Okay.
Brian?
Trump.
And finally, Lindsay.
Beat him up. Oh, sorry.
Still probably not voting.
Still probably you don't like either of them.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm a little curious about the people who can't find the enthusiasm or interest to vote, but do find the enthusiasm or interest to get up in the morning and go to a on-air focus group.
Yeah, at least twice, because the first time she said she wasn't sure, and then she came back.
Yeah, I mean, like all the time you just spent here telling us, oh, no, I don't care about voting. You could have voted and just...
That's approximately where the clip ends.
Oh, okay.
I think one of them, they interviewed one guy, if you want to continue it, and he talks about why he decided to go for Kamala. Maybe that's worth doing because that gets back to the Leon Panetta comment. Okay. So why don't you play that?
All right. Our editor is going to be so glad the way we rigged this up today. It's going to be so much easier to do.
Yeah, tell him it totally
led to...
this is totally worth it for one thing, but yeah, it's I'll explain at some point the technicalities of it. But this I'm excited about this possibility aside from the clip. All right, the rest of this clip here.
You all making a decision. Was it that decisive of an evening, Scott?
Yeah, I really, as I said before, I really liked her confidence. She's really seemed presidential. She seemed very confident. Like I said, she spoke from her heart. I liked how she filled you in on her background.
I mean, this guy is like, I don't know, 60 or so? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 60-ish-year-old white guy, close crop, like buzz cut, you know. This is in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Right, I was going to add that. So,
okay. Well, forget I said it then. You add it later.
No, you add it now.
She struggled. Her mother struggled.
All right.
Middle-class family.
And Donna, you were...
All right, well, that's the end of the clip. So I guess that's why... that got included in there was just, and everybody here, there's no
saw a follow-up clip where he basically said, I like the military part. She talked about veterans. And so I just made up my mind.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to say is
under
that
30
Panetta was for that guy and for the other people in that audience.
Maybe, yeah.
It wasn't for us. We would have found some of her comments a little bit too militaristic. Why did she say, yes, I promise we are going to have the most lethal military? Yeah. Why did she say that? Well, it wasn't for us. It wasn't for Blue Sky. It was for that guy. It was for Iran, and it was for Russia, and it was for North Korea. Was it really? Well, that's the way the audience sees it.
Yeah, I could see that. I thought
that's why Leon Panetta was there.
Well taken.
He's the national security credentials guy.
Yeah, he's an interesting case. Yeah, I would say I don't know whether Leon Panetta is convincing, maybe to the focus group people.
Well, see, that's the point.
Maybe.
Right. I thought he was dearly, David. I'm not asking you whether he was convincing to you because I'm reading on social media.
I know it's not convincing to me. I'm just saying that there's another group of people that Panetta is convincing to, and like Republican voters, I think is not it. I think it's Clinton, old line, aging.
For the
Bill
Democratic
Clinton
ones,
voters.
But don't forget, this is a wider thing. And I think this is really important because what she's trying to do here is a blowout.
Yeah.
She wants not just the people who like Bill Clinton. She wants the people who like Mitt Romney. She wants the McCain voters. She wants the guy who was undecided but like what she said about the military. And I'm reading the Never Trumpers.
Yeah.
And they're saying, oh, my God, Leon Panetta is perfect. This is exactly what we need.
Weird.
And I'm laughing at them because I had the same reaction you did. And I'm laughing and say, really? After all of this, you found the first three uninspiring, but you found Leon Panetta to be your inspiring North Star?
Man. I mean,
and they're saying, well, yeah.
I find that hard to believe, if only because I also remember that a lot of these Never Trumpers have had long careers, during which I remember them being unrelentingly critical of Leon Panetta because he was the defense secretary for a Democratic president.
Sure. They would have preferred Chuck Hagel
was
also voting for Harris, and Chuck Hagel would have been an okay choice instead of Panetta. I don't know why they talked to Leon Panetta. Maybe Hagel was unwilling to do it.
Yeah.
But it's the same demographic that they're trying to reach there.
Yes.
And so that's why they put him there. And you know, it was no accident that Panetta followed by Kinzinger, or however they did it, you know, in the 9 o'clock slot in the honor position.
Yes.
Was Adam Kinzinger, who actually did a darn good job.
He did what he was supposed to do. He was irritating to
did what he was
people
supposed
like
to do.
me, but
exactly
that's okay.
Right.
I did what I was supposed to do and stopped
listening. We're not the audience for him.
Right. I played my part and said, all right, this is where I'll get a snack or something. So fine.
But I'm saying
thought Panetta
what she's trying to do is get the Adam Kissingers to vote for her. And if you add our people and our motivation to the
I
sort of,
stop
I don't know, maybe I sort of voted for Biden once. I'm not sure I'm going to come back. But you add in the I voted for Trump and I'm a Kissinger voter. I can't do it now.
Mm-hmm.
That's a much bigger tent.
Yes.
And she's going for that.
It was all designed to do something, and it did all the things it was designed to do. I don't relate to Panetta, and I don't relate to people who like Panetta, and I worried that David Brooks's friends at lunch would be uncomfortable, because it sounds like pancetta, and they don't know what that is. Oh my God.
Brooks should have been in that focus group. I really would like to hear what he has to say, and I guess we'll hear it tonight because it's Friday.
Yeah.
And he and Jonathan Capehart on PBS have this discussion. So it'll be very interesting to see what he says tonight in regards to tonight and Panetta.
Yeah.
Who I bet he mentions.
I would guess so. Yeah, that's who I really thought Panetta was for, even though it does sound like pancetta and it's a weird Italian deli meat, and he gets upset about that.
Right. So this is another piece here. This is from Karthik Sura, Karthik for Texas, on Twitter. A clean energy leader, former public school teacher, who says this: Harris's convention speech was designed to rebut the conception she's too liberal. If you're getting mad at her and calling her some kind of conservative on issues besides Gaza, then by all means do so. And I would say even issues with Gaza. Don't pretend you're somehow clever at politics. She is trying to win. And then puts this quote from Vox in a Vox-splainer. And just does a screenshot and says, in a recent New York Times poll of 3 battleground states, 44% of voters said Harris was too liberal, while only 34% said Trump was too conservative. And in a Gallup poll taken in June, 56% of voters said that Biden was too liberal, while 44% deemed Trump too conservative. That's who she's aiming at. That's why they did what they did last night. I thought it was great, not because I love the militaristic part of it. I thought it was great because I want more votes. I want a blowout. I want so many votes that Trump can't possibly pull.
Yes, that's what
January 6th. That's my point.
Yes, not without being captured and exiled. People do this. From time to time they try these things anyway, and it would be my pleasure to render him to a Mediterranean island or something.
Right. So, there's things you can and can't talk about. This is interesting. This is from Jonathan Cohn, and points out that in the swing states, in the blue wall swing states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, a GOP mailer went out yesterday.
Okay.
In case you're wondering how much of a liability Project 2025 has become for Trump.
Okay.
And the mailer basically says, straight from Trump's platform, not Project 2025, which Trump didn't write and doesn't support. They're spending money on this, folks.
Yeah, I love it. And what could be better? I know what they're trying to do. Some people, I guess, it will work with, but you paid for a mailer that says Project 2025 on it, and you're sending it around in the Midwest. Awesome. Thanks. I'm not paying you back, but thank you.
Right.
Cool.
So all of that. This is from Jonathan Chait. Kamala Harris gave the best acceptance speech I've ever seen. Perfectly targeted message. And writes, she rose to the occasion with a perfect nominating acceptance speech at the Democratic National Convention. By the way, that is the consensus. I've never seen a nominee target their political objectives so precisely. The text was ideally suited to the electoral challenge she faces, and her delivery exuded strength and inspiration. And I have to tell you, I cannot speak too highly of her delivery. It isn't just what she said. It's the way she said it. She had that stern teacher look. And for the purposes of this speech, to prove that she is up to the task of being commander-in-chief and taking on Trump, both, that's exactly what you wanted.
It was good. The only thing that struck me weird, but I got over it pretty quickly, was that it seemed like, well, she put the, accepting the nomination part right in the, not even in the middle, kind of in the beginning, and then just went on with other business. She made that line, and there was huge applause, and everyone was like, well, that was a short speech, but great, wonderful. Oh, there's more. Oh, okay. Usually that comes at the end. Let's see what else you have. The balloon guy almost let everything go.
Right. Well, as Angel Reese said about Michelle Obama, this lady has words.
She does. And it wasn't, I don't know. I never hit any point where I was like, well, let's get this over with already. This is way too long. And, another good one. Oh, another good line.
So this is, I always follow the pundits. So this was interesting to me. Chait goes on to say, I've not hesitated to criticize either the substantive merits or the political shrewdness of Harris's choices. I could find nothing to criticize in this speech. And then he goes on to talk about the speech itself, which is, sort of not all that important.
I'd like you to meet with the fact checkers.
Yeah. And then he says, Harris's delivery enhanced the message. She was forceful and confident. She sounded like a nominee who believes she's going to win. The floundering incipient candidate of 2019 could not be a more distant memory now. I don't even remember it. Harris is in this to win this, and I believe she will. And I think that everybody who left that convention thought she will. I think most people who watched it thought she will. Did I tell you yesterday Meghan McCain's reaction to all of this?
Meghan McCain? No, I don't think so.
She said, oh, my God, this is just like such an uneven match. The RNC should just stop trying. We can't match this convention.
Oh, my gosh. Well, yeah, they have no more chances to try. But
Chris Cillizza.
Who? All right.
Remember him?
I do. Yeah, here's a beer that I think he would be.
Kamala Harris made an incredibly huge mistake in picking Tim Walz because Josh Shapiro was the obvious choice for all the political savvy reasons. And then yesterday he said, you know what, guys, I was wrong. Tim Walz is actually the right choice.
That was
in
a
so
widespread
many ways. It was so clear after his speech. Here's my newsletter. Sign up for it so I can tell you stuff.
Don't. But yeah, don't sign up for it. Don't tell me anything either, please, Chris. But it's great to hear it from him. He doesn't have to come back and correct the record, but it wasn't just him that I saw. I definitely saw other people, some regular folks and some pundits saying, I had my doubts. I really thought it was a mistake, but boy, has Walz turned out to be the right guy for the moment.
Right. And so again, with that patriotism stuff.
Yeah. And
all
sorts of stuff.
It worked with him. All the hokey stuff worked. All the cringe stuff works terrifically. We talked about cheeseheads and corn hats and, the Midwest stuff and the football stuff and it all worked. And Harris didn't do any of that. She was the stern school teacher, the principal.
Yeah.
And, this is the speech. This is what I'm doing. I have no doubt I can do it. I'm rolling up my sleeves. If I need to punch him in the nose, I will. If I need to be, conciliatory, I will. I will do what it takes, and I will protect you, and I will protect our country, and I will be a great president. And again, I just thought she pulled that off beautifully.
Yeah. Well done. We were happy about that, and just generally, era of good feelings begins.
Right. Speaking era of good feelings, I was laughing with my online friend Liam Donovan, the Republican strategist.
Okay.
And I said, so honeymoon's not over yet.
Yeah.
And he said, no, definitionally it is. It ended last night. I said, come on, Liam.
Well, technically.
They eloped back on July 21st. The parents convinced them to come back and have the wedding. They had the wedding last night. The honeymoon's just beginning.
Yeah.
It's not going to end.
I don't even think definitionally.
The polls say they end.
Like definitionally, I mean, unless it's like, well, now we're in the bounce period, not the honeymoon period. The bounce period.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's. I guess he thinks they're two different things.
The honeymoon is the bounce period.
Yeah, that's what I think. I'm with you on that. I think he sees them as two separate things. But I couldn't tell you why.
Well, he figured everything happened early, so it doesn't count this year. And what I'm saying is,
you're wrong.
You got that wrong.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you on that. And 99% of everything. So,
right.
So that's
now,
pretty good.
This is just for fun as we move on to the 927 break here.
Yes.
Carl Quintanilla, who follows economics, was laughing and says, LOL betting markets.
Oh. And
via Axios, he does this betting market at Polymarket, which is nuts. Polymarket's crazy. Will Beyoncé perform at the DNC? Okay. 98% chance right up until she doesn't, and then all of a sudden it's 0 chance.
Well, that's how things go.
Yeah, that's exactly how things go. The markets are reactive, not predictive, and he's just pointing that out here.
Yeah, okay.
And it's pretty funny.
Right.
As of this morning, Beyoncé has a 0% chance. But you can still buy and bet on it if you want to.
I mean, it's your money.
It's your money, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah, that would have been fun to watch. Yeah, everybody sort of figured that was going to happen. I thought, possibility of Taylor Swift, because there was that hint. I thought, reading into Hakeem Jeffries' speech, but no, as it turns out.
Right.
So that's okay.
And then somebody also in that same thread reminded that back in the day, Clinton was going to be the president of the United States until 3 p.m. And then all of a sudden, it was Trump.
Yeah.
In those last hours. Right.
And
so are the markets predictive? Well, depends what you mean by predictive.
Yeah.
Do you mean either 1 minute or 30 seconds after something has happened? Well, absolutely.
No, they're pretty good at marking the moment when everybody read the news anyway.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We got more. As it turns out, if the DNC can go for 4 nights, we can go for 2 hours, don't you think? Okay,
well,
maybe
we
not
can
you,
go for
Greg.
5 days.
Yeah, well, we'll put a 5th day in.
Yeah, Monday,
for
Tuesday,
them.
Wednesday,
yeah,
Thursday,
you
Friday.
have been here 5 days. You're the hardest working man in
retired
what
guy.
Business is it? Yeah, I don't know. Hardest working retired guy and not in an actual business.
In blogger business,
Yeah.
whatever. So anyway,
Content
this is from
business.
David Rothkopf. Kamala Harris just gave the speech of her life, concluding a week of extraordinary speeches. The Democrats saved the best for last, a tour de force that made it clear that not only is she ready to be our next president, she must be. So he's writing in the Daily Beast. I'm just giving you the sense here, I hope, that the speech was well received, as was the convention.
Yes, good. Well done.
Oh, and I also pointed out for our Twitter friends, you probably missed the Joe Biden coup last night because of the 1968 riots diverting your attention.
Oh, yes, right. The big overthrow where he blew the doors in and took back
He was the secret guest.
Predicted by
What you didn't see, because everybody knew this was going to be 1968 all over again, except for those of us who lived through 1968 and knew it wouldn't be.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a relic of the past. They do everything they can to avoid that sort of thing. And there was no call for it. But the savvy political mind, if you can call it that, of Donald Trump was pretty sure right up until the last minute that was going to happen, which should tell you a little something about, where's his head and is he ready to be leader of the free world, commander-in-chief, etc. He lives in this land of spooky, dark fantasies that turn out to have nothing to do with reality. It was actually, if people were paying attention to it, it was a huge strategic mistake for him to make a prediction like that about something that was happening right then and there in front of everybody's faces. Usually he has the buffer of 2 weeks, and people forget what he said and then nobody knows. But by now every Democrat knows to tune him out. But I wonder whether there are any Republicans who, fit into that swing or undecided or soft Trump support category who would say that's a prediction about a fairly major and important, what would be a major and important event in American history. And he's just off on another planet seeing something completely different.
So there's this account on Twitter called Medium Buying. Which, usually tells you things like, oh, this is how much the Democrats spent in North Carolina this week, and this is how much reserved RNC has for, that's the National Committee for October in Arizona, that sort of stuff. And last night they published viewership for the 2024 political party conventions for the RNC. Night one was 18 million viewers. Night 2, 14.8. I've told you these numbers.
Yes.
Night 3, 17.97. So night 2 was their lowest. And then with Trump, night 4 was 25 million. Mm-hmm. That was the one where he started conciliatory and then he got boring and, half the convention left, which is quite different than what happened at the party.
Well, they didn't want to get hit
in
by
Chicago
balloons.
For the Democrats. The DNC, night 1 was 20 million, night 2 was 20 million, night 3 was 20 million. And then we'll see what tonight is. I don't have an update on night 2, 81 million watched on various and sundry platforms, said the DNC.
Right.
So 3 to 4 times the amount that watched on TV. We're doing clips and all that sort of stuff. I don't have those numbers yet for yesterday, and I don't even for night 3, and I don't have it for night 4 at all. That won't be till this afternoon.
People are still watching.
But one of the viral clips that went around, of course, was Tim Walz's son Gus, who is pointing and crying and saying, "That's my dad."
Right.
Now,
yes,
we loved it. Humans loved it. Normal people loved it. Conservatives criticized it and made fun of him the way that Donald Trump makes fun of disabled reporters. And that was a thing.
Yeah.
And not everybody
really
reacted well to it. That's the next clip you're going to play?
Well, by special arrangement, yes. Right. So, I guess I saw this circulate yesterday, not this clip, but I had the same reaction. Was, I guess, Ann Coulter, who is still alive, had joined in with this, this Republican criticism, taking shots at Gus Walz and saying that he was, what did she say? He was like, oh, talk about weird. And, took this picture of him, teary eyed and reacting to his dad's speech. And, look, some people get photographed in unflattering ways all the time, but specifically going at the fact that he's, what did the term for that they were using was neurodivergent. And yeah, she really stepped in it with normal people, but, with Republicans, they love being evil. And I guess, so you found this reaction from, it was circulating, you saw it on Twitter, but I guess a TikTok video.
Yep.
So, okay. So I did some extra work. This is what I traded my breakfast for, to make this air ready. And I've been waiting for a clip like this to use all my sounds on. Let me roll it. Okay.
I'm reporting on the very last day of the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago, Illinois, and I feel like the entire week I've been very demure, very mindful, very cutesy, but ever since I saw Ann Coulter say this about Tim Walz's son who is disabled, I'm going to say that it's all out of the window. Man, you, Ann. Don't nobody give a fuck about a woman who died 10 years ago and is decomposing and still dyes her hair with peroxide in the motherfucking sink. What the fuck do you know about raising children, okay? Childless monkey women for Trump. That's exactly what you are, because you look like the Wicked Witch of the motherfucking West and need to throw water on your ass to make you melt. We are tired of this shit. And as Michelle Obama said earlier this week, we're no longer going high when y'all go low. We're going to drag your to hell where your unseasoned succubus belongs. Thank you.
So
that was a lot of work.
She was pretty restrained, but you should have heard what she really said.
Yeah, tell us what you really think. I think we're going to be okay. I think we let one ass slip through there. But I don't know. It was fun to bleep them all, and I ran out of sounds. I had to start repeating. And
I sent it
that's
to
how we
David, and
feel.
I said not safe for work, but
yes,
apparently maybe he made it so it could be.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? The truth is, of course, the whole thing is safe. There's no one out there that can fire you for it. But I think somehow it's funnier, and even when it stresses just how vehement the language really is. She's right. And, that was probably a widespread feeling, not just about Ann Coulter, but there were a lot of people who were like, I behaved myself for 4 days because we knew we could be on TV and we were putting on a show, and now it's time to go out there and kick people's asses. Okay, great. And, that's the energy you want anyway. And I noticed, by the way, that in the lead up to, Harris's speech, they played that clip of her speaking to the group and saying, sometimes you got to kick the effing door down, and laughing at herself.
Right.
So because they're not afraid of that one either.
Sometimes you have to kick the effing door down.
Yeah. I was thinking, when were the stage managers of this one? How come she didn't have to kick her way through a door to get onto stage?
Well, that brings up another point that a lot of commenters noted.
Yeah.
Comparing her to Hillary Clinton back in 2016, who made a point of saying the glass ceiling has 1,000 cracks and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And Harris absolutely went out of her way to not say anything about the historic nature of her candidacy.
Mm-hmm.
She basically said, I am all those things that you would like to say about me. I don't need to say them. I am them.
Yes.
I am the blended family. I am America.
True.
I am representing all of those things. I am the prosecutor. I am the tough lady who can be commander in chief. I don't have to tell you those things. Figure it out for yourself. I'm showing you who I am. And so that's what she did in that speech last night. And that's one of the reasons why it was so good and why the delivery was so important. So you could do those things.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go to a focus group and tell them I might vote for her.
Right. Well, the Trump guy always wanted to vote for Trump. To me, he was undecided for Trump. But, the other people who probably did change their mind was cool. And again, if it's Pennsylvania, more the better.
Yeah.
I
even
did not
like Josh Shapiro.
And I did not see. And I could not find, this is a Sin who's doing all of these tapings of what CNN said. So I didn't hear the reasoning from the lady who said she's not voting for anybody because she hates everything.
I don't know if there was any.
Hates you, hates me, hates them.
Sure.
Hates her stuff. I mean, I don't know where she's coming from and what her reasoning was. But like you said, she's engaged enough to come at least twice to those focus groups. So what's up with that? I don't know. I can't really speak to it. I do know that the other guy who voted for Trump, who wants to vote for Trump, I was undecided, but I saw what I needed to do in voting for Trump. Why are you voting for Trump? And that was, I think, an older black male who basically said, because I don't think she's ready.
Oh.
That was his reasoning.
I mean, that's the bad reason, guy. The other guy is definitely not ready. And that's I can't imagine thinking, well, she's not ready for the job, but Donald Trump is.
Yeah, I don't think she's ready for the job, whereas I know the other guy's not ready for the job.
So I'm going with the devil I know. And we're going to destroy the country.
So, but hey, people do what they do.
Yeah. I mean, all right. There's still time.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I don't know. What else you got? Did anything else happen yesterday?
Did anything else happen yesterday?
Yeah, I don't know.
Usual sort of stuff. what else happening? This is Mark Thiessen.
I have plenty. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay. So, yeah, no, I have plenty because I haven't even hit the pundit roundup yet. Now I'm looking at what I wrote because I wrote it like 2 hours ago, so I don't remember any of it. Oh. But this is Mark Thiessen.
Yes.
New York, hello, Mark. The Washington Post guy who basically is a polemics guy who only writes stuff that favors Republicans.
I see.
Who is shallow and terrible. And I pulled this tweet because I just thought it was so funny. Mark Thiessen says, and remember what I told you about Project 2025 and those mailers going out to the swing states?
Yes, right.
Mark Thiessen says, no think tank president has ever given the left more ammunition than Kevin Roberts. His catastrophic leadership of Heritage is going to cost Republicans the White House.
Well, cool. That, by the way, that's like 5 catastrophic leaders at Heritage in a row. Maybe you should disband them.
I said, well, Kevin Roberts told the truth, did he? Oh, well.
Yeah, got caught.
It happens.
They keep doing it.
And then Ramesh Ponnuru.
Okay.
Mixed up a genie with a monkey's paw, but that doesn't matter because the gist is the same. And he writes, a genie gave Kevin Roberts one wish, and he asked for his think tank to make a difference in this election.
All right. Yeah, that does. That work. I see the genie theme there. I get it. I mean, okay. All right. Always be careful what you wish for.
Right. Matt McDermott pointed out that Democrats are currently witnessing, this was last night, one of the strongest fundraising hours in political history. More than $6 million raised on Act Blue in 1 hour.
That's pretty good.
That's
Bionic
very
levels.
impressive. Now, because it was so late at night, you're not going to get the one-day total that's going to match when Biden stepped down, which was something like 63 million. But yesterday was top 20, might even have been top 10. And it'll be really interesting to see what it is today. Yeah. Politico did point out that Kamala Harris had more donors in just 10 days than Biden had the whole election.
Oh, okay. Well,
Tim Miller, who is a never-Trumper and did not participate in last night's focus group. I'll tell you a little bit about that. But every night after the convention, the bulwark never-Trumpers were getting together saying about what they think. I wasn't moved by it. I get it. It's a Democratic convention. It's not for us. I wish there were more conservatives. I wish there were more. And last night was, oh, my God. Oh, stars in our eyes. That was so good. That was so perfect. That was, oh, my God, Leon Panetta. Adam Kinzinger especially. That's my guy. But Leon Panetta, oh, God, this was great. Look at those flags. Patriotism. This is wonderful. So it's just always interesting to say that. Meanwhile, on Twitter, Tim Miller from the Bulwark, part of that crew, but not part of that crew last night, says, the pitch was pretty simple. We love America as is and want to do the work to make it better. They hate America as it is, and they'd be happy to tear it apart if it makes Donald Trump's life easier.
Yeah.
That's the pitch. Make your choice.
That's pretty
much it. The guy who has said, okay, well, I'm voting for Trump. Well, okay. What's up with you?
Yeah. I guess he believes America is a hellhole. Because that's been the Republican platform since well before Trump, but Trump really has kind of made it his personal brand as well. And that's weird for people who are supposed to be patriots.
I don't know if you are aware of this, but our friends at the Daily Kos Elections, David Neer and company.
Yes.
Steve Wolf, they've spun off.
Yes.
They are now the
twirling
down ballot
toward freedom.
On Substack. They're not part of Daily Kos anymore. I don't know the backstory.
Right. I did see it. I saw a note from him announcing it, and I think the day I got it, I said, well, hey, this is happening. I don't know why, but it is. And if you want to follow it, and you do, you should be looking at now, you want to be looking for the down ballot.
One word on Substack, and they write, Morning Digest, Republicans are starting to give up on Carrie Lake, and she could help bring the Arizona GOP down with her. I love that story, so I thought I'd read it.
Terrific.
While Republicans continue to hope that far-right conspiracy theorist Carrie Lake can flip Arizona's open U.S. Senate seat, the Arizona Republic's Ron Hansen reports that major donors and outside groups aren't investing much to aid her in what's become an uphill battle against Democratic Representative Ruben Gallego. Hansen, and Gallego, by the way, was one of the speakers. And I should throw this in. If you're looking at it in terms of strategically how the campaign and the convention decided to do their speakers?
Yes.
You may think that Roy Cooper is not the most dynamic speaker in the world.
That was an unusual cleanup batter, yeah.
But it wasn't. He was the one after Kinzinger, but directly before Kamala Harris.
Yes.
But what they did is they had North Carolina speak right before Harris. Remember, these aren't people. These are states.
Mm-hmm.
So the state slot was given to North Carolina just before Kamala Harris speaks. Message, we're going after North Carolina, and we want a bigger mandate than you thought you were giving us.
Mm-hmm.
All right? They had Arizona speak earlier in the night. Sure, it was, the astronaut dude.
Mark Kelly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who showed us why he wasn't chosen for vice president.
He did. But he's a nice guy.
Before that,
nice fella.
As he put it out in his speech, which was rather touching, you think Barack had a problem because he had to follow Michelle? I had to follow Gabby Gibberts.
Yeah.
Who was in every way, shape, or form teary-eyed wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
This is a woman who was worked so hard to be able to do public speaking again after she was shot in the head by some guy.
Yeah.
She did a great job. Everybody loves Gabby. You could see right away why she was the most popular member of Congress. She still got that.
Yeah.
And so that was Arizona. So Arizona spoke.
Yes, and you'll notice that she didn't have, didn't put a giant bandage on her ear or anything. She too there was an assassination attempt and shot, and came and told you about it, but no props.
Yep, just with a big smile on her face.
Yeah.
Let's go. And it was like, oh, I just want to hug her. She is just so good.
Yeah.
And then they had
Never
Michigan.
Fight
happened to
t-shirts.
be Big Gretch.
Yeah. Oh,
who
you're
said,
right.
"Hi, I'm Big Gretch," which I just cracked up at.
Yeah,
she was great. She would have been a fantastic vice president. She didn't want the job right now. You could think of strategic reasons, like that guy who says he's voting for Trump, why she wasn't on the ticket. But she gave a great speech, and she was representing Michigan. So what I'm saying is the swing states were speaking, and that's why Cooper was there doing what he was doing.
Sure,
so the swing states spoke right before her. She's sending a not so subtle message. These are the states that matter. Shapiro and Shapiro's not Shapiro. Shapiro is Pennsylvania.
Right.
So those are the states that spoke and the states that mattered. And, she found people. She found Cortez Masto to talk about Nevada, which part of Nevada you're from.
Right.
And,
Mar-a-Lago.
She got
Gretch.
that was
really good pronunciation. Mar-a-Lago.
Oh
my God. That
Sarah
was awesome.
Palin style Mar-a-Lago. It was hysterical.
Yeah. That was pretty funny. And just one, peer, she doesn't wear glasses, but sort of a peer over the glasses to everybody about, and by the way, those a-holes tried to kidnap me.
Yeah, by the way, I thought I should mention that. Yeah.
Really just thrown in with a pile of stuff that's horrific about Trump. It's not so much about me, but let me just point out that.
Was she the one that did the Mark Hamill brush her shoulder?
I don't know.
I
might have missed it. That sounds about right.
It was like, he said this and flicked him off.
Huh.
And it was great.
Wow. Yeah, I think I missed that, unfortunately. Unless it was another night, in which case I was purposely missing.
What I'm saying is that the swing states spoke.
Yep.
The almost candidates for vice president spoke. When you see it, all it's doing is, on the one hand, recognizing that these states are important, so you have popular people from those states speaking and or those who are running for positions in those states, and at the same time, you are reinforcing why the night before Tim Walz was the choice.
Yep. That's what people talked about. They all said, this would be a snooze fest with the other guys.
When you lose Chris Cillizza, or when you gain him, or however you want to look at it,
it's all a loss when
point.
You're dealing with Chris Cillizza. Yeah, you can't deal with Chris Cillizza and not
even Chris Cillizza got it.
Right. And what kind of beer would it be? I don't know. This is a dumb idea. Successful beer. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Anyway, so Logan Phillips, who does Race to the White House and is a very good analyst, said, I've watched a lot of Kamala Harris speeches. This is the best speech I've seen her give. A lot of people said that. Okay.
Oh,
Stuart Stevens, a Republican, retired now. And I can't remember who was who, but I think he was Romney's guy.
I think he was everybody's guy, but yeah, all right.
He's been around for a long time. He said, look, this race isn't about inflation or gas prices. It's about Donald Trump. That's how you win. That's how you win big.
Mm-hmm.
He's right.
Yeah. But also, do you want to talk about inflation?
I didn't give you Adam Kinzinger clips to play. I didn't think you could stomach
That's
them,
fine.
but I'm just going to tell you a little bit about him. He said the Republican Party is no longer conservative. It has switched its allegiance and the principles that gave it purpose to a man whose only purpose is himself. Donald Trump is a weak man pretending to be strong. He has suffocated the soul of the Republican Party. And some have questioned why I've taken the stand I have. The answer is simple. We must put country first. To my fellow Republicans, and that's why he was there, prominent
still a Republican
slot at 9 o'clock, still a Republican. If you pledge allegiance to those principles, I suspect you belong here with me. Vote for our bedrock values. Vote for Kamala Harris.
Okay. I will.
That was my reaction. Okay, good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Next.
I mean, he says good
I'm
things.
not the audience.
Yeah. I appreciate him in another context. And I understand why we had to do this one here today. It was annoyingly long for a Republican to have that much time. And I'm sure there were Democrats that are like, what about me? I'm a good Democrat. I'm in a crucial, swing district running for my life. I got a minute.
Right. Jim Messina, who was Obama's 2012 election manager.
Okay.
Apparently, and he's teasing us with this because we don't have any specifics, unlike the CNN people who are actually talking to people.
All right.
Jim Messina tweets, wow, I'm watching swing voters. He said at one of those dial things.
They still do those,
where you dial in, I like it, or you dial in, I don't like it. It goes from 0 to 100. If you like something, you dial it up to 100.
Right, turn the knobs.
Or 101, because it was like that good. Or you dial it down to 0. So he says, wow, just watching swing voters, that was, to be scientific, an effing home run.
Hey, all right.
So I don't know what that was.
Term.
I hope we hear more about it, but it was good. This one is J.V. Last, one of the Bulwark people, one of the more conservative ones, who's nonetheless their best writer, in my opinion.
Okay.
So for those of you who are gamers, you might get this title. I'll explain it if you need to.
Listen up, production staff. Yes?
Right. Democrats, all your base belong to us.
Wait a minute. Even old people know that one, I think.
Well,
maybe
know
only old people. Yeah, I do. But I don't, I don't know why it was a meme, just that it was.
That. My son burst out laughing.
That's a good question. Yeah. It may be. There are certain, ancient memes, like our favorite, the Leroy Jenkins one.
Exactly right.
Sometimes, if gamers of just under a certain age are like, oh yeah, the memes Jenkins? That old people think are memes.
Yeah, well they are.
They were, and they kind of, but they're classics. We'll say that.
He says all your base belong to us. Last night the Democratic Party served notice it is not satisfied. This is a point I was trying to make earlier. With its coalition of African Americans, Hispanics, progressive, suburbanites, union workers, and educated professionals.
Not that we're not
They
satisfied.
want rural white voters too.
Yeah.
It was an extraordinary piece of programming aimed at the heart of the Republican coalition, and it suggests that Kamala Harris is not trying to win a narrow blue wall victory. She's making a play for a realigning election. Okay, fine. He was great.
Sure. Yeah.
Josh Shapiro gave a very good speech. Then Tim Walz came out and took the House down, absolutely comfortable in his own skin, perfectly suited to the moment, the best possible counterweight for Kamala Harris in a strategic nightmare for Trump. I was wrong.
Oh, all right.
Walz was the better pick.
That's like a historic punditry moment.
Yeah, a lot of them are saying it.
And, what was it that, I'm trying to think of, there was a moment during one of the speeches in which they were pointing out that Trump had said something and blah, blah, blah. And it was so clear that he was wrong. But rather than admit that he was wrong, he, made everything 100 times worse. And I can't even remember what the discussion point was, which is amazing because it really struck me at the time. Right. But
I'm reading the comments on my pundit random today, Daily Ghost, and our friend Rambler797 made me laugh.
Okay.
So we're talking about that focus group with the guy who said she's not ready.
Right.
And he says, a VP and senator isn't ready? Who is? A guy?
Yeah. A guy from TV.
Guy. It's got to be a guy. It's not a guy.
Basically, yeah. That's the issue. Right. She's not ready because she's a she. That's what it is. All right. Well, you're wrong about that, sir. But, okay. Stuck in your ways. Now, I remember what it was. It was Al Sharpton and the Central Park 5.
Yes. Now
4 of the 5 now. Yes. And, right. And I think everybody's familiar with the story and maybe everybody saw the speech, but yet they were there to say that, Donald Trump, even when it became clear that there was a confession from somebody else, DNA evidence that excluded them and convicted the other guy, even after all of that, rather than say, hey, I was caught up in the moment and all of New York was outraged, he doubled down. He said, I'm still right. I stand by having taken out a full-page ad in the New York Times demanding the execution of these 5 kids who weren't guilty of this crime and who, by the way, went on in one case, Yusuf Salam, to be elected to the city council in New York. Right. He was going to end those lives before any of that happened.
He was wrong then. He's wrong now. He's never going to change. It was perfect.
Yeah, and he's never going to admit it. I mean, the living embodiment of what we could have lost because Donald Trump refuses to acknowledge what everybody, science, justice in America, the federal government, the city government, everybody recognizes as a gigantic mistake. You were wrong. No, I wasn't, and we should have killed them anyway. Oh my God. I mean, I remember the feeling that stuck with me, even though I couldn't remember
the in addition to his being convicted of everything under the sun that every New Yorker knows he's guilty of.
Right. And I believe I have just played the 2-minute break instead of the 1-minute break, so we got some editing problems ahead of us, but thank you, Greg. I was so excited I hit the wrong button. I appreciate all the extra service. Thank you for your service, Greg Dworkin.
For funny clips, I'm happy to give you service. Yeah. Anyway, I'll talk to you on Monday.
Okay, very good. We'll be back.
I want to see the polls next week.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. Well, that's what you're here for. See you then. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Boy, this is going to be an education in terms of what do we do with this and the music when it comes to editing for the podcast. I don't know. So we'll get creative about this. Essentially all I did was I have my 1-minute break and I got my 2-minute break, and at the top of the hour here, it's supposed to be the 1-minute break. So we should have been re-entering to the exciting dun, 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 dun. But, instead we're in the throes of the 2-minute break because I don't know. I'm losing track of everything today. I'm a little off. I'm waiting for my breakfast yet. I'm hungry and I couldn't eat it in 1 minute and still get back on the air. Okay. So, yes, I was, extraordinarily moved by the poignancy of bringing on the 4 remaining, I think, as one of them passed away. I think I recall that being the case. The 4 of the remaining 4 of the Central Park 5, unless it was just somebody who was, not up for participation in an event like this. But just a remarkable story. I don't know if there's anybody listening to the show who isn't familiar, but I think Donald Trump's candidacy was an opportunity to remind everybody just what kind of a crazy reactionary he was. But, I mean, it was an inflammatory case, to be sure. And Donald Trump was by no means the only person in the New York area. This is why he did this. I mean, he thought he was reading the room of New York City and doing this really rather extraordinarily inhumane thing, but he thought he was speaking for the majority, and he may even have been right in the sense of, expressing the outrage. I don't think he was right in taking out an ad of this nature or making the call that he made. But there were certainly plenty of New Yorkers who, in thinking that these 5 were guilty of this horrific attack, wanted them or thought that they should be sentenced to death. However, the additional step of taking out a newspaper article, really, honestly, talk about it was clearly aimed at not just whipping up the crowd, but corrupting the criminal justice system in favor of his position and in favor of executing these kids who didn't do this thing. And any of the lives would have been wasted in that. And they did, in fact, then waste, I think they said 7 years in prison before they were actually exonerated in all of this. And for a guy who uses the word exoneration all the time, I was totally exonerated by this, that, and the other thing. And he never has been. And he's got the criminal convictions, facing charges. If there are any, what an extraordinary thing, the idea that a candidate for president is currently facing, although not on trial for it yet, facing charges, different in kind, but as egregious as any there are. Crimes against, defrauding the United States, launching an insurrection against the United States. By the way, capital crimes in the day, launching an insurrection against the United States. I don't know so much that we would consider it that way anymore, as just sort of a general trend away from the death penalty for almost all crimes. But by the way, I guess you want to go back to the founders and talk about originalist intent. They meant you would hang for that. That's what they meant. They certainly didn't mean you should be nominated for president and run so that you can pardon yourself and undo and erase the criminal nature of what you've done before and just declare it awesome. No, they meant when you're caught, you hang, with the possible exception of those pardoned by the good graces of George Washington himself. But I don't know if you want to hold yourself up to George Washington. Donald Trump certainly does. I'm even better. Some people even say better than Washington. So, I guess that won't deter him from claiming that glory. Okay, so let's see. What other things can we mention about? I guess there are a few more things to say. You could find another hour's worth plus to talk about things from the convention. I thought the music was terrific. There should be a soundtrack to the convention. And when I say that, I don't mean a list of the songs. I mean, they should be selling a soundtrack. I guess they don't sell CDs anymore, but you could download it or find the playlist. And the DNC ought to be marketing it, selling it. Would I donate $50 to get the whole playlist either sent to me or whatever? And I don't mean people were immediately offering the information. I have that list, or the Washington Post put together a playlist, or somebody on Twitter put together a full 4-night playlist. So you can get, it's not the information I want, the titles of the songs and the artists. I want those files, and I want them all in one place, and I want a fun excuse for donating to the campaign. I'll just have to do it anyway and make my own fun, I guess. But that could have been it. They could have sold CDs. Now that's what I call a convention or something like that, right? One of those musical compilations that's really about, I'm not charging you $50 for it because it was $50 worth of work. Well, it might be $50 worth of licensing, but, so charge $100. The idea is it should be a fundraiser, but they could have done all sorts of fun, interactive things. The idea occurred to me, you should be able to, they should have on-screen voting, call-in voting during the convention, for, the singing competitions or whatever, where put up 5 different songs and, for the next 20 minutes you vote on it and pledge $10 when you call, and whichever one has the most votes, the DJ is going to include it in the next hour of music or something like that. I don't know. It was just sort of an interesting marketing opportunity and a great way to keep the show moving. It was just a mistake of production from the clips that we heard from the Republican convention, that they just allowed too much dead air, and the Democratic convention producers knew not to do that. And they filled it with music that was interesting and fun and upbeat and exciting and got crowd reactions. So they panned around with the cameras every time. So very nicely done. Really enjoyed all of it. And what else can I tell you? Nothing much more about that. I'm sure there'll be some more things that occur to me as we go on. Oh, there was this one thing. I meant to tell Greg about this. So Greg, Russia, whatever, if you're listening, what happened to Rhode Island's calamari guy? Why not the calamari guy? You were saying they should have brought him back for the roll call. He was such a hit. Well, so there's an answer for that. And as it turns out, USA Today asked that question, and they have a piece here from a couple of days ago. No calamari comeback from Rhode Island in the 2024 DNC roll call. James Powell writes for USA Today, and I guess this is interesting. I wouldn't have thought of this as the reason, but it makes some sense. I guess there was not a second calamari comeback during the ceremonial roll call vote at the Democratic National Convention on Tuesday. The fried delicacy included in Rhode Island's nominating presentation stole the show from the 2020 virtual roll call vote that nominated then candidate Joe Biden. A reappearance from Chef John Bordieri was highly unlikely. Why? Since the Associated Press reported in June that the so-called calamari ninja, you remember that he was there in his black chef's garb and face mask. We were all masking at the time, even though they were outside on the beach. But everyone was masking out of abundance of caution. So he was the calamari ninja. But as it turns out, the AP reported in June that he was a supporter of then President and 2024 Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. I don't know whether he was bitter and resentful at having to stand out there on the beach in 2020. Like, was he a Trump supporter in 2020, or did he become a Trump supporter in between? Like, he could have just said, no, I'm not going to the Democratic National Convention, even if it's just to hold calamari. But I guess he wanted the promotion for the restaurant. I don't know. So there you go. No calamari guy although they could have gotten another calamari guy or featured some other food, I guess. But that's the answer. Probably didn't occur to me that a guy who would have been at the 2020 convention that way would find himself at least in June of this year, a Trump voter. But then again, I can't understand why anybody ever considers themselves a Trump voter. It's a stupid idea. So anyway, that I thought was of some interest. I think that might be it for the convention news, but we'll see whether I'm reminded of something else as we go along. All right. Let's see. So many other things, so many other directions to go. Let's see where we can, if we can catch up with some of the backlog of stories. All right. Well, how about a weird story? I mean, a Tales of the Weird. That is to say, why is J.D. Vance such a weirdo? Why are all of the alt-right weirdos like him the way they are? And I've got something. Can I read this thing? I can't tell exactly. Does this ever display No, I guess not. Can I read through this thing without pop-ups and paywalls and such? This is a piece that my brother Mark sent along at some point. From the information.com. The information. What information? The information. So I don't know what the hell I'm reading. The information. I can subscribe to read the full article. That I wasn't prepared to do, or I could continue with the various sign-in methods. But this is the far-right guru who has befriended Silicon Valley's extreme factions. And that would include Peter Thiel and all his proteges, which means it includes J.D. Vance, who is, of course, weird. And I guess the reason they're as weird as they are, they probably started weird, but they're listening to a weird guy, Curtis Yarvin, a weirdo whose name I've heard before. I don't think I've ever seen his his photo before, but now I see it. And, well, okay, he's weird. Now what's this? Greg sent me a note here. Oh, okay. Well, that's of some interest as well. And, just now, rather than keeping suspense, Fed Chair Powell signals time has come for September rate cut, which of course Donald Trump will be criticizing as, coordinated. They're plotting against me. It's election interference. But Jerome Powell used a speech in Jackson Hole. Hey, I was just there. To signal that the Federal Reserve will begin to cut rates on September 18th and to voice wariness about the job market. Oh, wariness. Look out. Too many people are working. So I guess we got to put a stop to that. So for those of you who think that it is election interference to cut interest rates, if they're doing it because they think too many people are working and there should be more people thrown out of their jobs, that's not particularly helpful. So I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe there's something about going to Wyoming that makes you want to eliminate people's jobs. Not sure why. Have a nice time, Jerome. I got a bakery I can recommend there, but I don't recommend, cooling the economy at this point. Rate cut, fine, but all right. Well, get out of the way, I'd say. Oh, let's go back though to finding out about the weirdo that makes all the Republican weirdos even weirder. I wanted to get back to it, but now he's sending me more notes, but okay. Let's do the weirdo thing first. Curtis Yarvin. That's the name of the latest weirdo, has found a place among the most right-wing in tech. Let's find out more about this wackadoodle and what he's up to. Julia Black is the reporter on this with commentary along the way, I guess, from several others at theinformation.com. In recent weeks, it begins, Democrats have relentlessly blistered Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance using a straightforward message. They were too weird to hold high office. If Trump and Vance are weird, imagine what the American public might make of Curtis Yarvin, all of 51 years of age, whose far-right thinking has influenced both Vance and, increasingly, members of the Silicon Valley right, including billionaires Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen. Both Thiel's Founders Fund and Andreessen Horowitz have invested in Yarvin's work. It's weird. I'm just curious about how you get to the stage where, your thinking is just so valuable that billionaires just want to fund your work. Like, I don't know. We do a lot of thinking around here, but none of it is, I guess, consequential enough or weird enough to get funded. You might wonder, look, let's let Julia's organized thoughts do the talking here. I don't know why I keep going on. Oh, I guess I might have to continue on with one of the subscription things because the print is starting to fade out on me. I thought it was going to let me read it with an annoying pop-up in the way, but I guess not. So let me try continuing with Google. Will it let me do that? Do I have an account? I don't know. I don't know what this is like. Is this just continue with Google? No, I have to create an account. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, maybe not. Or maybe something I do behind the scenes. But, okay. Well, I don't know. We'll see how hard it is to create this account. To create an account, boo. You're going to share my information with them. That sucks. Well, oh, by the way, look at this. This is interesting. Choose the plan that's right for me. All right. Well, here's the answer. Mark, if you subscribe to this thing, you send it to me because they want $750 for me to subscribe. And here's the information about the information. You can go F yourself if you think you're getting $750 from me for a story about Curtis Yarvin. Although I'm interested in it, and I wonder now that with that price tag, I'm just motivated to try to find my way around the paywall. So if anybody has a fun and easy way around, I guess I'd like to read about this wackadoodle and what he's all about, but I'd also like to keep my $750 in my pocket for the moment. Okay, let's see. Where were we then? All right, well, it was a good idea, and thank you. It seems like a good idea and a good article. To give you a sense of where it was going and why I thought it might be worth doing. All right. If where were we? If you think Trump and Vance are weird, what about Curtis Yarvin? As an intellectual godfather to these conservatives, Peter Thiel and Mark Anderson, Yarvin has laid out a philosophy in which he suggests replacing American democracy with a monarchy. Like, okay, but that's like you fail sociology, get out of here, you're an idiot. No, I should have billionaires should pattern their thoughts around mine. I want to get rid of American democracy and replace it with a monarchy. It's interesting also to me that there are billionaires in this country who don't say, the throwaway line, even whether they believed it themselves or not, was always, this is the greatest country in the world, and only in this country would this have been possible. I have so much success, and I have freedom and free enterprise to thank for it. And then they say, actually, I'd rather have a monarchy. So I don't know. That's kind of weird. At a recent Palo Alto, California reading of his poetry, how do you get to be like, is he a philosopher? He's a philosopher poet. And billionaires are just like, here, have money and just wake up at whatever time you want in the morning and have breakfast and just brain fart into this jar for me. And I'll tell people that you're my guru. I got to get this job. I guess in some sense I have that job, but we need more billionaire subscribers. I'll brain fart in a jar for you 5 days a week for 2 hours, but we're not getting millions of dollars. But I'm not doing any Palo Alto poetry readings either. But at a reading of his poetry, now, all right, how weird is he? First of all, he had a reading of his poetry at Palo Alto and billionaires went there. And then he asked his audience to wear cocktail attire for the new regime, at which point my cocktail attire is I put on all white and I got the big net and I put you in a rubber room. That's what happens. But these guys, I want to know how you break through how do you get through the crazy barrier where you say that this guy is a raving street lunatic. Wait, no. I'm a billionaire and he's a genius and we should listen to his stupid poetry and wear cocktail attire for the new regime. That's a thing that makes sense. I will do it and I will pay money and I will tell everybody, you got to listen to Curtis Yarvin. Not happening. He is referred to himself and his friends, and I believe he might even have some, as dark elves. Dark elves. Yeah. Hey, how you doing? My name's Curtis. I'm a dark elf. So are my friends. You should wear cocktail attire for the new regime. Wow. To me, of course, wow, this guy's crazy. Stay away from him. Make sure he doesn't get any sharp objects. But I want to know how you make the jump. Billionaires, we'll take $10. It's just subscribe to the show. Please, honestly, it makes me so angry that somebody who's running around saying, wear cocktail attire for the new regime, I'm a dark elf, is making a comfortable living out of this somehow. That's troublesome to me. He's referred to himself and his friends as dark elves on a heroic journey to rescue the know-nothing hobbits who make up the American populace. We should get rid of democracy. We should have a monarchy. You're all hobbits. I'm dark elves. I don't even think there are dark elves in the Tolkien, but whatever. And last summer, before all the type fades away, it says, Yarvin decided that Vibe Camp. I've never heard of it. Just not for me. Not a part of my life. Vibe Camp, which is a thing. It is an annual Burning Man style meetup. And I'm already out. Burning Man. No, not of interest to me. No, I heard that's a bunch of weirdos anyway. This is a weirder Burning Man. Vibe Camp, which is a Burning Man style meetup of contrarian techies, aren't they all contrarian, in rural Maryland. So I could get there, but I'm going to purposely avoid that area of rural Maryland when Vibe Camp is going on. Well, he decided it wasn't contrarian enough. So he threw his own party in Washington that attendees called Vibe Kampf, like Mein Kampf, Vibe Kampf, We're not contrarian enough. It's not contrarian enough to say I want to overthrow America's democracy and replace it with a monarchy. We should replace it with a Hitlerian dictatorship. And I'm a dark elf also. And so honestly, the first thing that comes to mind, which is, I'm sure, an unfair comparison. I don't know what kind of person politically he was, but I'm just thinking of, there was this era, you want to be old? This era when AOL was a thing, America Online, right? I mean, I guess it still exists, but when it was like the way you got to the internet was by using the free CD-ROM that would be forced down your throat if you bought a newspaper or something. They were constantly sending you AOL discs so you would load their software and log on to the internet their way. And at some point they were printing money, and they were paying Shingy. Do you remember Shingy, the digital prophet, like this wackadoodle, I think Australian guy who, dressed funny and had wacky hair and walked around saying things like, in 10 years, everyone will be downloading blueberry muffins or whatever. I don't know. He just had these ideas like, he was the flying car guy for AOL. And that was his job title, digital prophet. And I don't know whether they ever fired him or whether he's still making money that way or what. But how do you do this? I can't figure any of this stuff out that people are able to. All right. Well, at any rate, here you go. That guy exists. And I'd like to find out more about him. And if anybody has a way around the information's totally ridiculous buy-in price of $750. By the way, if you would like, I will take half of that if everyone will sign up for annual subscriptions for our show at half the cost of getting this one article from The Information. I'll give you the real information for half price. $350 would be a fine way of signing up to support the show. And as a matter of fact, I do have that to announce. That brings to mind that I want to thank David Paquette for his annual support, which has just been renewed and is awaiting deposit just now. One of the few people who enjoys doing things by paper check these days. But also, I had a new subscriber who I was just notified of yesterday, and I like to write those things down so that I can thank everybody by name when possible when they sign up as subscribers to the show. Justin McFadden, just yesterday, I guess inspired by the convention, I'm not really sure, but decided to join up, and we appreciate having him on board. And then it occurred to me, I had written down another name, and when I read your name, I put a little check mark. Did I remember to thank you on the air? And then I realized that there was another one. Frank Kite. Do I have that right? K-Y-T-E. Frank Kite also, back on July 11th, made it onto my index card, but then I was distracted by all of the fun events, including 1, my own vacation, 2, the change in the guard at the Democratic Party, and then 3, I don't know what. Lots of clutter on the desk. But thank you, Frank and Justin, for being our latest subscribers to join. The rest of you ought to be doing the same as well. And one of the big things that our production staff is after me for now on the editing side is making new commercials for our little fake commercial spots where I tell you about how fun it is to subscribe to the show and how I will make you dress like dark elf regime change wackadoodle flying car people and come to my strange, weirder than the weird Burning Man gathering. I don't know how you pull this stuff off. All right. Well, that was a little bit of a tangent, and I really would like to read more about how weird he is, but we're going to have to find our way to getting to that. All right. I have some ideas. We'll see if any of them work. Here's another thing that I wanted to bring you up to date on, and that I thought would make here's one that's a good long read. Here's a short-ish story to throw in here from The Guardian, just follow up on news that we heard about a couple of years ago, and you always wondered, hey, well, what's going to happen to those people? And here's an answer. The Guardian reports that the company that sent fake Biden robocalls in New Hampshire, do we remember this happening, agrees to a $1 million fine. Interesting in a sense. Case is seen here, the subheader says, by many as unsettling example of how AI might be used to influence groups of voters and democracy. It's actually an Associated Press piece running in The Guardian. A company that sent deceptive calls to New Hampshire voters using artificial intelligence to mimic Joe Biden's voice agreed on Wednesday to pay a $1 million fine and bolster its caller identification and authentication features, U.S. regulators said. Lingo Telecom, the voice service provider that transmitted the robocalls. You see how technology has gotten us away from it's not a survey company, and they're not making phone calls. They're voice service providers now to capture every kind of telecommunication there is. They have agreed to the settlement to resolve the enforcement action taken by the Federal Communications Commission, which had initially sought a $2 million fine. So somehow they got it down to $1 million. Meanwhile, Steve Kramer, a political consultant who orchestrated the calls, still faces a proposed $6 million FCC fine, as well as state criminal charges. The case is seen as an unsettling early example of how AI might be used to influence voters and democracy as a whole. I got more on this. You should hear it after this. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. All right, so I was in the middle of, or the beginning of, telling you the story, the follow-up story about what happened to the people doing the fake AI robocalls with the fake AI, well, I guess they're real AI robocalls with a fake AI Joe Biden voice in them. And it's interesting. I guess essentially the people responsible for it are claiming, well, it wasn't a political stunt designed to make Joe Biden look bad. It was a political stunt to raise awareness of the dangers of AI. With another one of these people that, just like the people who say, I wanted to raise awareness of the danger, the possibility of cheating in an election by cheating in an election to show you that it was possible. Okay, but you should still go to jail. And also, we knew that. We were all worried about it. Anyway, so Steve Kramer is still facing a $6 million fine. He's the guy who orchestrated the call. And, well, there's a mention in here of something that made me, I guess the reason I followed this one up, or that came with this story right after the Curtis Yarvin attempt, is coming up here. The phone messages were sent to thousands of New Hampshire voters on January 21st. They featured a voice similar to Biden's, falsely suggesting that voting in the state's presidential primary would preclude them from casting ballots in November's general election. A spurious, or a specious idea in the first place. But think about my word choice here. But at any rate, a number of things happening in this. One, it was a dumb idea to try to convince people of. But now you see the lines are beginning to blur. Well, they used AI, or they were trying to show that AI could do this, that, or the other thing. And then they just are saying they featured a voice similar to Biden's. It wasn't that they got Biden's voice and used it to generate I guess I don't really understand here whether they used samples of Biden's voice to then use generative AI to say, what would it sound like if this person's voice said the following words, or whether they just got somebody who did a Biden imitation and they enhanced it in some way by, I don't know what. And then as so many companies are doing now, they just throw in AI and say, well, we put AI in it. So it's super sophisticated, but it's really just somebody who sounds like Biden saying something. And they used AI to do the dialing. I don't know. It's just very weird. But the phone messages were sent to thousands of people in New Hampshire back in January, and told them if they voted in the primary, and again, not even sure what the idea of bringing down turnout in a primary in New Hampshire was worth in an unopposed race. But okay. The FCC said that as well as agreeing to the civil fine, Lingo Telecom had agreed to strict caller ID authentication rules and requirements, and to more thoroughly verify the accuracy of the information provided by its customers and upstream providers. I don't even know what exactly is going on there, but okay. Every one of us deserves to know that the voice on the line is exactly who they claim to be, said Jessica Rosenworcel. Oh my. Okay. The FCC chair. I didn't realize that. As if AI is being used, that should be made clear to any consumer, citizen, and voter who encounters it. The FCC will act when trust in our communications networks is on the line. But they'll cut the fine in half, I guess, if you cry about it. Lingo Telecom did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The company had earlier said it strongly disagreed with the FCC's action, calling it an attempt to impose new rules retroactively. I guess, in one sense, I guess it would be imposing a new rule. They had to come up with a new rule because they didn't have AI and AI-generated voices to deal with before. So, yeah, it's imposing a new rule, but it's not imposing it retroactively. They're saying AI and the use of it violates our already existing rules about the need for clarity about who's speaking and why when you make calls like this. Anyway, and to clarify, AI would count as violative of those rules. Kramer, now this is where the story gets Shingy Curtis Yarvin weird for just a second. Kramer is the guy who orchestrated it and who's still facing the $6 million fine. Not the guy from the Seinfeld show. Kramer, who paid a magician and self-described digital nomad to create the recording. What are you talking about? What? A magician, and there's a link here. I got to go to it. But a magician and self-described, not digital prophet, but digital nomad to create the recording. Well, Kramer said earlier this year he wasn't trying to influence the outcome of the primary, but rather wanted to highlight the potential dangers of AI and spur lawmakers into action. Well, they spurred them into fining you $6 million. I don't think that's what you really meant. But it did get me thinking that there are people who have too much money or who get too much money from weirdos like, I don't know, Peter Thiel or something, Silicon Valley weirdos who think of themselves as dark elves and go to VibeConf and things like that and fund people, and they consider it a price of doing business. Like what we did with the $6 million is we bought unbeatable publicity for our efforts in AI. Now everyone will know the name of Lingo Telecom and come to us for leading edge something because our name was all over the paper. It cost us $6 million in fines, but we could have spent that $6 million advertising and would have only gotten half the exposure. You see? Well, anyway, if found guilty, Kramer could face a prison sentence. Now that's talking. Of up to 7 years on a charge of voter suppression and a sentence of up to 1 year on a charge of impersonating a candidate. The Nonprofit consumer advocacy group Public Citizen commended the FCC on its action. Robert Weissman, the group's co-president, said Rosenworcel got it exactly right by saying consumers have a right to know when they're receiving authentic content and when they're receiving AI-generated deep fakes. Weissman said the case illustrates how such deep fakes pose an existential threat to our democracy. Loyan Egal, it's Loyan, Loyan Egal, E-G-A-L, the FCC Enforcement Bureau chief, said the combination of caller ID spoofing, that happened, and generative AI voice cloning technology posed a significant threat, whether at the hands of domestic operatives seeking political advantage or sophisticated foreign adversaries, conducting malign influence or election interference activities. So it all sounds bad, but it also sounds like they're going to cut the fine from $2 million to $1 million. Maybe wait and see whether Kramer does any time in jail or has to pay any fine. You know, I was just trying to do you all a favor and show you what could happen if a guy like me committed a crime like that against people like you. Well, I know what happens. You go to jail and you get fined. Why are we debating this? I just thought it was interesting. Now, I have to go and take a look at the magician guy. I remember this from the story the first time. But the Guardian's piece from back in the end of February, Ramon Antonio Vargas reporting from New Orleans on this one. New Orleans magician says he made AI Biden robocall for aid to challenger. Paul David Carpenter said he was paid by a consultant for Democrat Dean Phillips, that's not good, to mimic Biden's voice in the New Hampshire primary. So now the question is, did I mimic the voice because I'm a mimic, or do I have great AI skills and I used AI somehow to do this? And why am I a magician, and why am I alive and getting paid? A magician in New Orleans, maybe we even read this at the time. A magician in New Orleans says he was the person who used artificial intelligence to create an audio recording of Joe Biden used in an infamous robocall, and that he was paid by a consultant for the president's primary challenger, Dean Phillips. NBC News reported Paul David Carpenter, who holds multiple world records. I'd love to know for what. Is it in the NBC News report? And also works as a hypnotist. Sure. Provided it with text messages, call logs, and payment documentation to back up his claims. Okay. Carpenter claimed he was hired by Steve Kramer, a consultant for Phillips's campaign, to use AI to mimic Biden's voice, discouraging people from voting in New Hampshire's January 23rd primary. I created the audio used in the robocall, but I did not distribute it, Carpenter reportedly told NBC. I was in a situation where someone offered me money to do something and I did it, which is not really an excuse. Like, you can't really just say, oh, well, you know how it is. Someone offered me money to do a thing, and I was like, it's legal to do things for money, so I did it. Like, what was the thing? Yeah, right. If it's an illegal thing, it doesn't really matter. Oh, he offered you money, did he? Well, that's a horse of a different color. Anyway, there was no malicious intent. I didn't know how it was going to be distributed. No malicious intent. I want you to make a recording that sounds like Joe Biden saying, don't vote. Okay. I don't know how it's going to be distributed, though, so this is okay. Like, they could mail it to people. They could call them on the phone. They could use voice over IP to do it. They could drop it in leaflets. I don't know. Because I don't know the distribution method, I'm clearly not guilty. The audio recording is currently under investigation by law enforcement officials, or at least it was in February, and prompted the U.S. government to outlaw robocalls using AI-generated voices. Carpenter told NBC it was, quote, so scary, unquote, how easy it was for him to produce the fake audio, saying it took less than 20 minutes and cost him $1. I guess he did use AI. In return, he was paid $150, as documented in Venmo payments from Kramer and his father, Bruce Kramer. How did he get involved? That Carpenter reportedly supplied to NBC. How do they have to have a pass-through for a $150 payment? And it's your father. By the way, super successful guy, right? Now, I'm a magician and a hypnotist and a digital nomad, and I can use AI to create deep fakes. It's going to be great. Okay. How much? $150. Okay. Sounds like a great bargain. Here's $150. Now, I don't have any way of accepting your $150. Give it to my dad and he'll give it to me. All right. Digital nomad. I'm moving from one end of my dad's basement to the other every so often. That makes me a nomad. Makes you no job. Is what it is. That's crazy. But at least there's no money in it. $150. The other guy is having vibe camp and making I don't know what. He's getting, I don't know, maybe he's making nothing too. He's just getting written up in the paper as though he's like well off and successful. And really all I need is to be written up in the paper to feel like I'm getting equal treatment. Well, let's see. He also shared what he described as the original robocall audio file, which he manufactured with software from 11 Labs. That is the name of the one lab that he used. They call themselves 11 Labs, an AI firm that touts its ability to create a voice clone from existing speech samples. NBC said Kramer, a veteran political operative, did not comment on Carpenter's version of events and would soon publish an opinion piece that would, quote, explain all. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. 2 weeks. In a statement, Phillips's campaign said it was disgusted to learn that Mr. Kramer is allegedly behind this call. God, pooey, I hate Kramer. If it is true that Mr. Kramer had any involvement in the creation of deepfake robocalls, he did so of his own volition, which had nothing to do with our campaign. The campaign's press secretary, Katie Dolan, said. Wonder what she's doing these days. The fundamental notion of our campaign is the importance of competition, choice, and democracy. Blah, blah, blah. If all the allegations are true, we absolutely denounce his actions. The FEC records show that in December and January, the Phillips campaign paid nearly $260,000 to Kramer, who paid $150 to this other poor chump, who once worked on the 2020 presidential campaign for Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, also a digital nomad himself, I guess. NBC said it found no evidence to suggest the Minnesota congressman's campaign had instructed Kramer to produce the audio or disseminate the robocall. They were just paying him $250,000 for reasons. Don't know why. Carpenter describes himself as a digital nomad artist, and perhaps, well, okay, so he's starving at least. And perhaps his biggest previous claim to fame was setting the world record for fastest straitjacket escape. That's the problem. And most fork bends in under a minute. What's the record for that? 1. Fork bends. I'm the world fork bending champion. Okay, fine. Oh, he's putting all his money in forks and then he's ruining them. No wonder he still lives in his dad's basement. They should put that guy in a straitjacket. Ow, what's the point? The only thing missing from the political circus is a magician, and here I am, Carpenter joked. Carpenter has no fixed address, but lists himself as a resident of New Orleans. Videos and images online show him in the streets of the city's famed French Quarter neighborhood. My, well, I hope he's not unhoused. Anyway, New Hampshire authorities by February 6th had issued cease and desist orders and subpoenas to 2 Texas companies believed to be linked to the robocall. Life Corporation, which investigators alleged was the robocall's source, and Lingo Telecom, there they are, which they said transmitted it. I don't even understand then. So Life Corporation is the robocall's source. I don't know what Carpenter is then, but Lingo Telecom transmitted it. Everybody's under arrest. You're all under arrest. Everybody. Sorry. We'll sort it out later. After news of the robocall became known, the Federal Communications Commission ruled unanimously, believe it or not, to either fine companies using AI voices in their calls or block any service providers that carry them. Phillips's campaign, the FCC, not the FEC. Okay, that makes some sense. Phillips's campaign has done little to affect Biden's status as a presumptive Democratic nominee, by the way. That's true. But it also didn't do anything. And, let's see. On Thursday, the Congressman, Phillips, floated the idea of running for the White House on a unity ticket with Nikki Haley. So his predictive skills right up there with Donald Trump's in terms of, any of his ideas coming to fruition. Oh, this is definitely going to happen, or this is a realistic possibility. No, it's not, and you should stop saying so. All right, well, that's entertaining. That seemed like a Friday story. I had one other thing that I thought might make, I had 20 other things that I thought would make good stories, and I'm going to read you this one instead of all the rest of them. And I don't know that I'm going to get through it, but it is a well-received and widely circulated Tom Edsall piece from the New York Times, August 21st. Trump isn't finished. I mean, Trump is finished, but I mean, he's not done with himself. So, he's got more dirty work to do, I guess. So, look at this. I have news from Justice that last minute glitch for his live broadcast following hours, the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, but he'll have the podcast of it ready later this morning for download and broadcast later today. He'll be able to start the show off about a half hour late or so. So for those of you who ordinarily stay tuned for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, I don't know what will fill the gap, but rest assured that the show will be available as a podcast for download. Does that mean I have an extra half hour to keep going? Because I could spend it very easily on all this stuff. Trump isn't finished. Tom Edsall has this to say. The damage inflicted on the nation during Donald Trump's first term in office pales in comparison with what he will do if he is elected to a second term. I think we all know that. How can we know this? The best evidence, of course, is Trump himself. He has repeatedly demonstrated his willingness to tear the country apart. I think this is a good follow-up to all the good messaging at the DNC, actually. Donald Trump and his MAGA supporters, Sean Willents, a historian at Princeton, writes in a forthcoming article in Liberties, says Trump and his MAGA supporters have made it clear that they will not accept defeat in November any more than they did when Trump lost 4 years ago. They believe that Trump is the one true legitimate president, that those who refuse to accept this fundamental fact are the true deniers, and that any other result other than Trump's restoration would be a thwarting of history's purpose and a diabolical act of treason. And by the way, we're all dark elves, and you should come to Vibe Camp in costume for the new regime or cocktail. All of this is crazy. The authoritarian imperative has moved beyond Trumpian narcissism and the cultish MAGA fringe to become an article of faith from top to bottom inside the utterly transformed Republican Party, which Trump totally commands, of course. And like Willents, Lawrence Tribe, a law professor at Harvard, does not mince words, writing by email. And this is mostly really a collection of Edsall's email conversations with leading historians and legal experts, etc., laying out the case. And, good. Lawrence Tribe doesn't mince words. He says, all the dangers, foreign and domestic, posed by Trump's cruelly vindictive, self-aggrandizing, morally unconstrained, reality-defying character, as evidenced in his first presidential term and in his unprecedented refusal to accept his 2020 electoral loss, would be magnified many times over in any subsequent term by three factors. Ready for these? First, he has systematically eroded the norms and institutional guardrails that initially set boundaries on the damage that he and his now more carefully chosen loyalist enablers are poised to do in carrying out the dangerous project to which they are jointly committed and to which they deny, of course, Project 2025, among others. Second, their failure to insulate themselves from electoral and legal constraints during the dry run of 2017 through 21 have led them to formulate far more sophisticated and less vulnerable plans for their second attempt at consolidating permanent control of the apparatus of our fragile republic. Third, their capture of the Supreme Court And indeed, much of the federal judiciary has put in place devastating precedents, like the immunity ruling of July 1st that will license a virtually limitless autocratic power, but only if they are not stopped during the epic struggle that will reach one climax this November 5th and another next January 6th. I mean, all of this is to say, when I saw this thing being circulated, a good reminder, as it was put, that this is a failure to understand the Trump campaign. It's not that they're conducting a new campaign for president. It's that they are continuing the work of the coup they launched most prominently on January 6th and have just dragged out over the 4 years during which the ringleaders of these actions have mostly been free, roaming among us in the streets and, pretending to run for president. But this is just a big continuation of the last big push to overthrow the government. The most important reason, Edsel continues, that a second Trump term would be far more dangerous than his first is that if he does win this year, Trump will have triumphed with the electorate's full knowledge that he has been criminally charged with 88 felonies, convicted of 34 of them so far, that he has promised to appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the United States of America, Joe Biden, and the entire Biden crime family. He's just as delusional about that as he is about the idea of him snatching back the nomination at the convention somehow. And that should tell you something. And he intends to, quote, totally obliterate the deep state by gutting civil service protections for the 50,000 most important jobs in the federal workforce, a central tenet of what he calls his retribution agenda. It should be disqualifying alone, just calling your agenda that. Julie Wronski, a political scientist at the University of Mississippi, contended in an email. The question is how much the Supreme Court presidential immunity decision will undermine institutional guardrails against Trump's anti-democratic behavior. If there are no repercussions for his role in the January 6th insurrection, intimidation of elections officers, and casual handling of classified materials, then Trump will be emboldened to partake in such activities again. Trump has made clear that the norms of governance, civility, accepting electoral defeat, and treating members of the political opposition as legitimate holders of power do not apply to him. Edsel continues, while Kamala Harris has pulled even with, if not ahead of, Trump in recent polling, Republican attacks on her have yet to reach full intensity, and the outcome remains very much up for grabs. I suppose he might feel more optimistic now after the convention. Bruce Kane, maybe he would be wrong to feel that, a Stanford political scientist, voiced concerns similar to Wronski's, also by email. Trump is more erratic, impulsive, and self-interested than your average candidate, and is much bolder than most in testing the boundaries of what he can get away with. In political insider lingo, he is a guy who likes to put his toes right up to the chalk line between legal and illegal activity. I would say he likes to put his foot well over the line and just dare you to do something about it, and then deny that his foot is there, and even if it is, he's immune. There is some evidence that his bad traits are getting worse with old age, but the more serious problem is the lowering of institutional and political guardrails, there's that again, that constrained him in the past. The decision in Trump v. U.S. entitling a former president to, quote, absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority, whatever that might be, and, quote, presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts, whatever they may be, seems to me particularly problematic, to say the least. Goodness. The court left open the question of how to distinguish between official and unofficial acts. Trump's personality is such that he will, without doubt, test the limits of this distinction. Timothy Snyder, historian at Yale, expert on the regimes of Stalin and Hitler, wrote by email, quote, it would be closer to the truth to think about a second Trump administration beginning from the images of January 6th. That is where Trump left us, and that is where he would begin. Unlike oligarchy and tyranny, Snyder argued, democracy depends upon example, and Trump sets the worst possible one. He has openly admired dictators his entire life. He would encourage Xi and Putin. The Russians make completely clear that a Trump presidency is their hope for victory in Ukraine. Allowing Russia to win that war, which I think is Trump's likely orientation, destabilizes Europe, encourages China toward aggression in the Pacific, and undermines the rule of law everywhere. Charles Stewart, political scientist at MIT, warned a second Trump administration would escalate the threat of authoritarian governance, most notably by sanctioning politically motivated prosecutions. Even if the courts resisted the baldest of the efforts, doing so will be costly to political opponents and also continue to silence dissent among conservatives who wish to have political careers. In 2016, and for much of his first term, major elements of the Republican Party viewed Trump with deep suspicion, repeatedly blocking or weakening his more delusional initiatives. That's no longer the case. The Republican Party is fully and totally behind Trump. Hell, he put his daughter in charge of it, right? Daughter-in-law. The epicenter of election disruption, even after 2 impeachments, an insurrection, and a criminal conviction, Julian Zelizer, a historian at Princeton, pointed out in his email. We'll read just one more, I think, before we break off for the day. The support that Trump received after January 6th and the entire effort to overturn the election demonstrates that much of the GOP is fine with doing this. That's the big problem. Now that the party knows what insurrection looks like and has given its stamp of approval by nominating Trump, we know that this is officially part of the Republican playbook, even when they try to deny it, right? One thing is clear, Trump would assume control of the White House in 2025 with far more power and with far fewer restraints than when he took office in January 2017. Oh, okay, one more. Jacob Hacker, you know him, political scientist at Yale, argued that Trump's near-dictatorial rule over the Republican Party and the absence of intra-party dissent will play a crucial role if he returns to the White House. Democratic backsliding rests heavily on the absence of contrary messages within the party undermining democracy because A, this further radicalizes sympathetic voters who take their cues from in-party politicians, and B, makes the battle into an us versus them partisan fight that's easily used by demagogues to justify further Democratic backsliding. Both Hacker and Francis Lee, another Princeton political scientist, pointed out that even with solid support from fellow House and Senate Republicans, Trump's power and freedom to act will depend on partisan control of the House and Senate. And that, of course, is what they're going for, and our job to deny them, whether or not that comes along with a victory in the White House. But scary stuff. Great reminder, though. He never stopped. He was never finished, and the movement to overthrow the government never ceased.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, well, stay tuned for the rest of the programming day right here on Netroots Radio. Eventually, we'll get right around to the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy as Justice works feverishly to get everything up, running, back online. It's a never-ending battle with our technology here, folks. Maybe we should turn into digital prophets and do better that way. Dark elves, at least. See you next week.